Ready to get started. Thank you for joining us at our library series today. I'm Gail Bean, and I'm the president this year for the Smith County Master Gardeners. And we are so pleased to have you with us. I'm very pleased today to be able to substitute for Dale Wade, who's home but coaching us from the sidelines. So today we have Baxter Willams with us as our speaker, and you're really in for a treat. Baxter is originally from Shreveport, Louisiana, home of the American Rose Society. He has spent many years in electrical engineering and has been growing roses since his first plantings in 1967. He's been a member of the American Rose Society since 1970 and is a life member and has served in many positions, both in the Houston Rose Society and the American Rose Society regionally, and it's just started from the time that it was really started. Mr. Williams' personal garden includes nearly 350 bushes of roses of all types. It has been on the Houston Rose Society Spring Garden Tour for 20 of the past 35 years and was a featured garden during the International Texas 2000 World of Roses Convention of the American Rose Society and the World Federation of Rose Societies in April. He has been a featured speaker. He's authored numerous articles. Several of his published articles have emphasized the how-to aspects of rose growing and garden construction principles based on personal experiences and his engineering background. So he has informed me that he needs all of his hour to get through his slides. So without further ado, I give you Baxter Willams.
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate that introduction, which I wrote. I got tired of hearing it misdone, so I just wrote the whole business thing. I said, read the red words, not the rest. There's plenty of more than that. And at one point, my wife and I had about 650 bushes. That's 552 meetings. Now, but let me find out about you. How many of you have no rose bushes at all? 5, okay, 6. How many of you have at least 1,000 rose bushes? I want to make sure everybody can participate. How many of you have somewhere between 0 and 1,000 rose bushes that have black spot? I pulled that little thing in Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona, at a consulting Rosarian school. And when I said, how many of you have, somewhere between 0 and 1,000 that have black spot, all the hands went back up. Now imagine, this is a consulting Rosarian school. I said, folks, if you're going to be a consulting Rosarian, you need to be honest. And I said, when you said I don't have any black spot, you jerked your hands down, you need to think about that. And somebody in the back said, we don't have black spot in the desert. And they don't. But I'll tell you this, the worst cases of mildew I ever saw was downtown Albuquerque. You think there's no moisture in the desert, there's plenty of it there to get the funguses growing. Now look, I put this little talk together simply because I had heard too many mistakes from the podium. And finally I said, I've got to have a program that's right, that teaches the fine points of rose growing and doesn't run off into the bushes somewhere, it stretches the truth. Let's be honest about this and let's tell it how it really is. And so I put this together. And I hope you enjoy it. It's a fun little program. It was when I put it together. Let's see if it'll function like it's supposed to. You know what thrips are? There are no effective thrips eaters. For those of you who like to grow things without using any chemical, there aren't any. If you don't want thrips, you're going to have to use a chemical to kill them. Okay? The bug eggs in the soil are really empty osmocote. I bought some roses in pots, and when I pulled them out of the pots, there were all these little bug eggs in there. And I thought, oh my gosh. I moved to Houston in 1967, bought a house that had 5 rose bushes in the yard. There were 2 peace roses that were planted on the east side of a northwest fence, so close that when the wind blew, the fence tore up the roses and the roses tore up the fence. And the other 3 bushes were so close to the house, which had quite an overhang, you have to get me in the middle there somewhere. That previous one was right. Yeah, bring those lights back up, please. Those 3 rose bushes were under the eave of the house, and there weren't any gutters, and when it rained, the water fell right through the middle of the rose bushes. And let me tell you, those were the mildewingest bunch of bushes God ever invented. It wasn't long till the wife said, I want more color in the yard. And so I went down to the Sage Red Barn Nursery and bought a book on how to grow roses, written by a husband and wife team. And I read that book just about from cover to cover. And it had beautiful color photographs in the back of varieties that were current, so you could actually go down to the nursery and buy one like that. And so that book said if you want to build a rose bed, you need to dig down about 18 or 20 inches, put sand and gravel and peat moss and stuff like that in the hole, which we did. And then we went out looking for roses that were in bloom in the pots. And I went looking for a beautiful rose that smelled good. By the way, that's all anybody cares about. Is it pretty and does it smell good? Kind of like women, you know, guys. And so we bought some roses and brought them and put them in the ground. And lo and behold, in just a few weeks, we had beautiful rose blooms. And then little things started going wrong. Little black dots on the leaves. Little gray mildew on the leaves. Little orange stuff called rust up and down the stems. The leaves would turn yellow and then brown and then fall off. And something was eating the little tender growths right on the top. Well, I go back into this book and I look and it said, well, if you got black dots, you need a fungicide. if something's eating the bush, you need an insecticide. So I'll go back down there and I'll buy some Faltan and Isotox. That's fungicide and insecticide. Sprayed the bushes according to the label instructions. That was on Saturday, my day off. Well, by Tuesday, some of the bugs had died, but I still had black knobs. So the following Saturday, according to the label, this was could be used every week, you know. I mixed up a batch and sprayed them again. And by Tuesday, all the bugs had died, but I still had black knobs. I said, I'm an engineer, I know how to fix this. So I mixed up a batch that had 2 tablespoons to the gallon and chemically defoliated 2,4-D Agent Orange couldn't have done anything. And about that time, my mother saw what was going on, and she gave me a complimentary membership to the American Rose Society. And I looked in their literature and found the Houston Rose Society and started going to meetings and reading their newsletters. And once I got the horticulture right, things got really easy after that. Are you listening? Doesn't cost much to become an American Rose Society member. It pays for itself, I'm telling you. Okay, now let's go to the next slide. Okay, cuttings take 2 years to make a bush capable of producing an adequate quantity of flowers, while field-grown nursery stock can do so in less than 6 weeks. Those of you who want to come by and take cuttings so that you can root a rose and not have to pay for it at the nursery. You take the cutting and you stick it in the ground, maybe with a little root stimulator, and it'll put out its own roots. It takes about a year to get enough roots to do some real growth. The second year, the bush grows up to a pretty good size. It might make a flower too. And the third year, you get blooms. You see what I'm talking about? Go buy the bush, put it in the ground, it'll bloom in just a few weeks. Otherwise, it's going to take you the better part of 3 years. Okay, next. Oh, have you ever seen a rose like that? It's called Archduke Charles. Those of you who like antique roses, this is one of them. If I had to pick an antique rose, I think it would probably be Archduke Charles. I want you to notice that the center of the rose is very light colored, and then it's pink, and then it's almost dark red. You get 3 different colors off of that one bush, and they smell good too. Oh, she found a battery. Okay. Twice as much Mancozeb or Isotox per gallon as bad. That's what I'm saying. Okay, write that down somewhere. A homeowner who wishes to grow old garden roses because they're hardier than hybrid teas has no intention to spray any of them. What a shame. Hybrid teas have thousands of varieties, where old garden roses, OGRs are called, have hundreds. And you can't get the quality of bloom and the variation of color off of OGRs. You can do pinks and reds and some whites and very few yellow. But if you want to see something exotic, start with the hybrid tea rose bushes. There are plenty of them out there. There are 135 roses with blue in their names, and all have this in common. None of them are blue. There's some shade of purple. Blue this, blue Nile, blue that, blue girl, and they're all purple. Oh, wow, here's a hybrid tea. It's called Brandy. there's a little story with Brandy. I chorused the guy finally to join the Rose Society. He grew them, and we never saw him. Never saw him. He didn't come to meetings. But one Saturday morning, he showed up with a brandy in his hand, and he got there 10 minutes before the show entries closed. He went to the wrong mall. And so I tried to help him. I said, well, we'll go over there and sign in at the desk. And I took his rose and put it in a vase. He said, shouldn't I get in there with a pencil or something rather than move the petals around? I said, no, you don't worry about that. Let me worry about that. You go sign up. So he did. I said, now get a card over there and put the word Brandy and your name and all that over there and bring it back to me. And I got to look at that rose. It was beautiful. And so he comes back with a named card and said, well, all right, now shouldn't I move some petals? I said, no, sir. You let the judges worry about that. Take my word for it. He put it in and won the queen of the show with that variety right there, Brandy. Long stems, beautiful, rich colors, and fragrant. When a person says ODRs have fragrance that's been bred out of hybrid teas, it means that he or she either never grew or smelled double the light. Oklahoma, Mr. Lincoln, Chrysler, Imperial, John F. Kennedy, perfume light, Jardine, fragrant cloud out of another. Or afraid of another failure. Well, let me tell you, no intelligent rose grower ever bred fragrance away from his rose. Not one. So again, where I heard people that have been bred out of there, I had to put a slide in and said just the opposite of that. There are fragrant roses out there, and they're easy to come by, and they're easy to grow. Oh, Queen Elizabeth. That was one of the very first ones that I grew in that first bed that I came to defoliate. But that rose was around when my mother was a little girl. You have to understand, in July I'll be 85 years old. Okay, when water droplets don't burn leaves any more than a magnifying glass and burn on a sheet of paper would burn the paper. And you ever had somebody said you don't spray water overhead during the day because the little droplets form magnifying glasses that burn the leaves? Oh, let me tell you, if you were to take a drop of water and place it on a leaf and try to concentrate anything on that leaf with that drop of water, the leaf is going to say, oh, that feels so good. I hope you do that all the time. They don't burn the leaves. Water droplets don't burn leaves. I don't care what the kid down in the nursery told me. A triple row of roses is a bad mistake. You will get cut to pieces trying to get to the one in the middle. Again, it took one time for me to figure that one out. Mama didn't raise any food. The fragrance of fish oil emulsion under your fingernails is magnified after you go to bed. You mix that up and you pour it all around your roses. And at night you bathe real good with a lot of salt. You lay down and put your head on the pillow. Under your fingernails. Never make predictions, especially about the future. Now you have to think about that one a little bit. Okay. Ooh. Know what that is? Let freedom ring. Long stem hybrid tea. Gorgeous, perfectly formed foliage. And when you catch it at that stage right there where the first row of petals has begun to come down, it'll have a center that does not unite. No, your eyeballs out. That's what judges look for. By the way, roses are not judged on fragrance. That plays no part in judging the roses. It's the form of the bloom, how it's the petals are equally spaced and they're open just right, and the color is not beginning to fade, and the stem is as straight as you can get it, and the foliage is pretty good. Foliage is only like 15% of the scope. It was about 65% of it in the bloom. So, okay. Moisture on leaves permits fungus growth, but only if they haven't been spray protected. God puts dew on them every morning. Oh, I can't water my roses at night. If I do, they'll get a fungus. They got a fungus because you didn't protect them. Roses need a little protection. You almost cannot buy a rose that won't black spot unless you buy it at the silk flower shop. Okay. The AARS is not part of the ARS of Black's Forest, so I ought to take that one out. AARS has been gone a long time. That stood for All America Rose Selections, and it was a collection of the various rose producers in the United States. Every year chose one good rose out of their batch, and they voted on it, and that became the top rose of the year. Come back, little Sheba. What happened? I didn't do it. Now, notice the last thing at the bottom of the page. Never plant more roses than your spouse can successfully tend. Trust me on that. Oh, anybody know what this one is? You got it. Double delight. It starts out with a kind of a creamy yellow in the middle, and then it fades to pink, and then it turns red, kind of like Hearts Do Charms. But it's a bigger flower and a longer stem, and smells to high heaven. Over your lifetime, one battery-powered sprayer equaled 186,937,000 thrusts on a pump-up sprayer. It took me a while to learn that, too. Oh, gee. I've got a 6-gallon spot shot sprayer that I drag around. It uses a 12-volt battery that you can buy down at the sports store, the Academy stores. And if you try to buy one from the manufacturer, it's going to cost you about $30, or you can buy one down there for about 15 or 16. One worm can destroy 18 high-quality show bloom buds before Bacillus thuringiensis makes him sick. You know what I'm talking about? BT. We had the city of Houston's top horticulturalist speak to us one day, and she showed us a picture of a tomato hornworm. Big old green thing, and right by its tail there was a bunch of little things sticking up on it. She said those are egg cases for a particular wasp. And if you leave that one alone, they'll hatch out and eat him up and then go lay their own eggs somewhere else. And I raised my hand. I said, how many tomato vines can he eat before they hatch out? If I see one of these, I'm going to whoop out my Felco pruners and cut him in a billion pieces. Stepping on him with a foot works pretty good too. Oh, yellow rose of Texas. St. Patrick. I want you to notice that the edge of the petals have a little green. St. Patrick is one of the best show roses that ever came out. It's got a slight greenish cast to the outside layer of petals. But that thing opens up and it holds and it holds and it holds. It doesn't open up while the judges are trying to get to it. You cut that rose, it's going to stay right where it is where you cut it. Now, I'm going to stop right here for just a second and to tell you that there are the right way to cut roses and there are some wrong ways to cut roses. When you're cutting a bloom to take inside or to take to a flower show, you go down to about the second or third 5-leaflet leaf and cut 1/8 of an inch above it. How many of you heard? Oh, you cut 1/4 of an inch above that, and it has to be at a 45-degree angle. No, 1/8 of an inch is much better. You'll think you're cutting 1/4 inch, and you'll end up cutting a 1/2 inch or something like that, and then it will die back down to that 1/8 of an inch. I'm not going to cut a rose that leaves something on it that's going to die. If you'll go down to 1/8 of an inch, cut it just above that leaf, where the next leaf down there, that'll be the right place. Now, people have said, well, you want to cut it so that you don't have growth that comes into the middle of the bush. God doesn't care. If you will cut your rose to a point to where the next stem grows straight up, it won't grow crooked. Just have to think about that a little bit. You know, that engineer in me kind of crawling up to the surface. Cut it to where the next growth is as near vertical as you can get. Here's the next thing. If the stem you cut is that size right there, that's a mistake. It should always be this size or larger. Whatever stem size you cut is the next size you'll get. If you want a flower that's as big as an orange on a stem that's 12, 15 inches long, you're going to cut it to pencil size or bigger. Otherwise, you get some little flower. Okay? And you're going to take that rose and immediately plunge it into a bucket of water. And then when you get inside, you're going to cut it again, this time underwater. Because the way roses and bushes work is they take moisture and nutrients in through their root systems by osmosis. That means they have to be drier than the soil. Let me say that the other way. The soil has to be wetter than the rose. Now, does that make a little sense? Okay. And it goes into the roots, and it comes up through the stems by two means. One is capillary attraction. You all remember. Poke the hole in your finger, put the little tube, and capillary attraction drew blood up in there. Roses do that same thing. And the fact that on the bottom sides of the leaflets are holes called stomata. And when the wind blows through there, it carries stuff away and a suction forms in the stem. So now if you cut that off, all of a sudden, instantly, you get a little air bubble up in the bottom end of it. That's bad because if you just leave it in there before long, it grows like this. So you cut it, you take it inside, you cut another 3/4 or an inch off the bottom of that stem, and you cut the air bubble out. You do it underwater, so that whatever gets sucked up in there is water. Now you just added about a day to the life of that wood. See, you thought everything was going to be boring. Okay. If you didn't get wet, you didn't knock enough spider mites off using the water wand. They have these devices called water wands. They're a long stem with a spray nozzle on the end, a little valve up here that you hook on the end of the garden hose, and you can run that underneath the rose bush and knock off the spider mites that are on the undersides of the leaves, particularly on the miniature roses that you're growing along the pathway or next to the concrete and brick on the walls of your garage. Spider mites love it warm when the sun goes down. So they get pretty close to these bricks and mortar and stuff. And I'll show you a picture of some spider mites down here. But the spider mites have to be on the bush to mate. So you take the water wand and you slide it up under that bush and blast them like a hurricane. And you knock them off on the ground. And you wait a day and you come back the next day after that and you blast them again. And you do that 3 times in a row. And you will have screwed up their sex life so bad they can't reestablish the colony. That's the way you get rid of spiders. And if you buy one of those bottles that says miticide, give it to someone unsuspecting. There's not a one of them that works. Rose judges should have mandatory Rose judges and flower show judges. I've stood there and watched them go over blooms and choose the wrong one. Wasn't even my rose. Choose the wrong one. Thought, boy, that guy needs his eyes checked. To the general public, fragrance be show formed hands down. That's natural. You know. The future ain't what it used to be. Yogi Bear. Oh, yeah, we're getting somewhere. Do you know that one? Perfume delight. Let me tell you, sweetheart, if you can't smell that, you need to get to a nose doctor really fast. It is a wonderful rose, long stems. Don't know who grows and sells it in this area, but look for that and Google for it until you get it. A dead bush is oftentimes the first indication that a drip system emitter has blown. We learned that in spades at the American Rose Center in Shreveport. We had a drip system with those little tubes run from a main line out to the bush. Problem was they just dripped right at the one spot at the base of the bush. They needed to have a circle around there with drippers all the way around. Or they needed a different kind of drip system. But the problem was the guys that do the maintenance there, they throw pine straw all across that thing. They don't know where the tubes are, and they step on one of them and it'll pull loose from the main supply. And then the bush dies. You're gonna do drip systems, be careful about those. Good pH is 6 to 7, better 6.5, ideal 6.7. Don't know what yours. Check every bed, each end. Be surprised the differences you get from one end of the bed to the other. Pest is a shortened version of the word pestilence, which is not confined to insects, but applies also to fungi, some four-legged and two-legged creatures. I remember leading music at a revival in Bossier City, Louisiana. And the preacher was preaching a series of sermons in this week-long program. And he was talking about the pestilences that came to the Egyptian king when Moses was trying to lead the them out. And Moses appealed. He said, you need to let the people go. Otherwise, God is going to send some pestilences. Well, one of those was frogs that came up out of the Nile River. You couldn't put your foot down without squishing a frog. And apparently Moses said, well, I'll think about it and let you know tomorrow. The title of the sermon was One More Night with the Frogs. I'll never forget that. An ounce of provision is worth dug out of the heart. Ooh, white rose. Well, it's called sugar bloom. You'll love the fragrance of this. It doesn't have to be a hybrid tea to win Queen of the Show. That's the top rose of the show. But that's the way to bet. Grandiflors can win it too, but you seldom see that happen. Just go with the flow. Bet on the hybrid teas. When your sweetie asks for roses on my birthday, she's not talking about knockout roses. Now, if those of you, 5 or 6 or 7 of you that said, I don't have any rose bushes, would like to try a rose bush that's absolutely easy to grow, go find Belinda's Dream. There was a study done by the Texas A&M Agricultural Research Center in Farmers Branch. They asked knowledgeable rose people to suggest varieties that could be grown with the least amount of care. And they came up with 40 varieties. And they planted copies of those varieties in Corpus Christi, Beaumont, Lubbock, and Farmers Branch. They spaced them apart so they weren't adjacent to one another, and they tested them for 3 years. They dug down into native soil and planted these bushes and used native mulch and watered them a little bit to get them growing. But they didn't spray them with a fungicide or an insecticide or fertilizer or anything. They just went by every couple of months and wrote down on the page what they saw. 11 of them came out as being what they called earth-kind roses. And knockout was the most popular one of that. But that's not the best one. The best one was Belinda's Dream, which was in that same group. So if you want to try a good rose, try Belinda's Dream. The early bird gets the worm, therefore it's best not to be the first one. Guys, relationship tip. When a woman says, correct me if I'm wrong, don't do it. It's a trap. Do not, I repeat, do not correct that woman.
Amen.
Amen. I'm glad to hear amen in here because we've got enough people to sing a few hymns and have prayer and take up a collection. Oh, does anybody know this rose? Fragrant plum. The word fragrant is key. Oh boy. A balanced diet is a That's what they used to look like. That was in the year 2000 during that International Rose Convention. And that's a third of it. There's another half over on the right side, and there's some out front. And right there is Belinda's Dream.
What was that? Which garden is it? Where was that?
Houston, Texas.
In Houston.
Houston, Texas.
What month was that?
That, if you need to get in touch with me, that was taken in April. Yeah, first bloom. If you do it right, now is the time to prune your roses. You need 2 things. Well, 3. You need a good pair of gloves. Hopefully that have sheepskin or leather on the palms. you need a pair of Felco pruners. You know, there's plenty of pruners out there. There's Coronas and all sorts of pruners. But my money, if I'm going to spend some money, real money, getting something, I'm going to buy Felcos. They're Swiss made. Every part on them is replaceable. I have owned 2 Felco pairs. One of them I was using just yesterday. I would still be using the first pair, but I accidentally dropped them in the shredder. It didn't do the shredder any good. My wife and I have been growing, like we said, since we moved to Houston in 1967. And we've had some good roses, and we've had some bummers. The hard freeze that we had, Storm Uri 3 years ago, killed 150 of our rose bushes that I had to go over into the forest. And many others were damaged to the point to where they have not made it. They are dying off sort of one at a time. And on Monday, we'll get in the car and drive to K&M Roses. I'll write that down. That's KANDM Roses.com in Buckatuna, Mississippi. That's as far away from here as you can get and not be in Alabama. And we will drive over there. It takes 8 hours from Houston to get to Buckatuna. And buy roses there that are grafted onto Fortuniana rootstock. Fortuniana is a wild rose, an antique rose, if you please, that is extremely vigorous. And so when you buy a rose that's grafted onto that, the rose is going to be 25% taller and longer and sturdier. It's just real grand. It doesn't like the cold weather, but that's all right. Fortuniana. And you can't get roses like that except for, maybe one other place, but K&M Roses. They will ship roses to you in 1-gallon pots. And it will surprise you how small they are until next year. And then it'll blow your mind. Okay, I have talked almost for an hour, but you may have other questions. How can I help you? Yes, sir.
Rose rosette.
Rose. Yeah, by all means, don't get it. And if you get it and identify it properly, you will want to put a bag down over the top of that bush, dig the bush up, and put that bag bush at the street for the dumpster to take it away to the landfill. You cannot control that disease. It can't be done.
What's the disease?
Rosette disease. It's a bad, fatal disease for rose bushes. And it spreads like crazy. There's little tiny insects in there, so tiny that the wind blows them around, that infect the bushes. And you'll see growths coming out that are just, they're not stems, they're hundreds of stems coming up. And the stickers were just thousands of stickers on this rose bush. And that's rosette disease. You do not want that in your garden, trust me. Yes, ma'am.
I know you're supposed to prune around Valentine's.
Yes.
But what if your roses are already budding out?
You go down to what I told you. Okay, 1/8 of an inch above an outward or upward pointing high. And if that means you have to trim off a little bit of that new growth, that'll be just fine. And the twiggy stuff just gets in the way and provides a place for thrips to hide. So you want to get your plant clean as best you can. There are little growths that come out about this long that have about 4 or 5 leaf sets in them. Those are called blind shoots or terminal shoots. You break them off with your thumbnail. And you don't want those. They are harbors for the diseases, the plant pests that you don't want. Another question. Yes, sir.
Is your yard still on the garden tour?
No, sir. And I wish it could be, and maybe we could get it back up to where we be on a limited tour sometime in the past. But unfortunately, I'm at such an age where I don't think I'm going to be able to do that. Somebody asked me the other day, he said, Baxter, what do you know? I said, nothing, and I can prove it. You had a question?
How much acreage do you have?
It's right at 2/3 of an acre. The lot is 150 feet wide, it's 200 feet deep, and there's an 18-foot city-owned strip between the curb and the edge of my property. So it's 218 by 150, about 2/3 of an acre. And again, I bought my wife the best lawnmower money could buy. And I've kept it running for 47 years. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you're changing right now, but do you also do it in the fall?
The word pruning is not what I do in the fall, it's grooming in the fall. Yes, and the last time that you want to make a serious cut on the roses is about the last week in August or the first week in September. And then you can cut them back to that, smaller than a pencil sort of thing. And let them bloom one more time. But do not take the old blooms off the bush. You just leave them there. That's that last fall pruning. You do it one time, and you leave them there, and they'll make blooms about Thanksgiving time. And then they will set seeds and go to sleep for the winter. Now, roses can go to sleep for several different reasons. One, you didn't water it enough. Secondly, just too much shade. If you plant them underneath the edge of the tree, that's probably not the right place. And when the earth gets cold, they'll quit growing. So then you have to wait until about now when the warm days begin to warm the earth a little bit, and they'll start growing again. Now, I learned something too. I put my roses on top of the grass. I had seen people go in there and shave the grass, and run the tiller, and do all of that kind of stuff. But as an engineer, I'm thinking, if you dig that hole down deep, when a big rain comes, it's going to fill up like a bathtub. And rose roots immersed in water is not good. So I put my roses on top of the ground. You see the landscape timbers here and there, and over here. They're 3 timbers tall. They are 3 inches flat to flat, so that's 9 inches from where they're sitting on. And I built the frame, and they are 5 feet apart. And then I put down newspapers inside the frame on top of the grass, and then poured good soil in on top. I know what's in that soil. I don't know what's in that dirt that's been there all these years. And it used to, we got black clay. And so it drains out by gravity. So that's the way I do. I put all mine on top of that. Yes, ma'am.
So the 3 inches, but then deeper with your.
No,
No, that's just the idea, okay, so only 3 inches takes care of the rows, 3,
Well, again, there are three timbers there, so that's 9 inches
9 inches, okay?
from here up to here.
Great. And you fill that with what? Rows?
Good soil from a soil yard somewhere, a potting soil or a growing soil. They mostly have sand, topsoil, and some humus material of some sort. Down in Houston, there's a place that gives what they call a triple mix. And that's a good growing medium. And you can grow not only roses, but you can grow vegetables in there too. Yes,
These Sandhill roses that you get in Mississippi are grafted onto Fortuna. What is the freeze temperature, or when will a Fortuna freeze? Because
It's
Houston's a
gonna
lot
freeze.
warmer than here.
Well, not in Buckatuna. When the temperatures get down into the teens, almost every rose bush will be compromised. Now, we went to a rose get-together of top rose show people and growers in northeastern Oklahoma. And I looked at the roses that this guy was growing, and let me tell you, he beats you on the show table. And his roses were down in a hole. He had dug a hole. And the bud union, that big knot with all the big stems coming out, it was down there, and he covered it every year with soil so that it could not freeze. I'm an engineer, I'm thinking about that. That sounds just like really, really smart. So in the spring, he would take a water hose out there and wash all the soil off, and the stems would have dyed black down to green, right about where that soil was. And he would cut them there. That left stems that were only this long. Oh my goodness. That meant he essentially had a new rose bush every year. So I learned something on that too. Now these, when the cold weather came a few weeks ago, we took the mulch and drug it up over the bud unit. And so you can protect it by doing that. Up north, they put a cage around there and fill it full of leaves and straw and stuff like that. In Minnesota, they even have what they call a Minnesota tip. They dig a trench out there like they're going to bury something, and then they cut the roots over here and fold the rose bush in there and pile the dirt on it. And in the spring, when it's not going to freeze anymore, they'll take the dirt off, stand the rose bush back up. Minnesota tip. I will never live in Minnesota. Okay. Any other questions? Thank you so much for